and good afternoon. Now, very warm welcome to all of you to our midweek Vibes show. Today, we are excited and very delighted to be talking about a subject of great concern to you as our congregation and I believe our publics. And I'm delighted to have with me on stage on this set, Dr. Ogecha, and I welcome you to please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Reverend Maggie. I'm Dr. Francisca Ongecha. I am a consultant psychiatrist and a lecturer at Kenyatta University. I hope we'll have a nice session this afternoon.
Karibu sana, Daktari. With me here is my co-host, Charity. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Reverend Maggie. I am Charity Mwaura Gatimo, and I'm delighted to be here.
Yes, and Charity is one of us here at Mamlaka Hill Chapel for the benefit of those who are watching us for the first time. On my right, I'm joined by Margaret. Please introduce yourself. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Reverend Maggie. Thank you, Charity, for having me on set again. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Margaret Njihia, and I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm also an assistant lecturer at the Technical University. And I'm happy to have Dr. Ongecha with me here. She's my lecturer.
Wow, excellent. There we have it. We have two professionals here for the topic that we want to discuss. And we want to look at the emerging adult. And Dr. Ogecha, please, if you could help us understand who is the emerging adult. And guys, we are back. We had a small issue, but we are back to start afresh, and we're so delighted to do this again. Karibu.
Thank you very much. When we hear about an emerging adult, the word itself says that this person is not an adult. Yeah, he's getting into adulthood. But where is he coming from? Yeah, so this person is actually coming from adolescence. Yeah, so we are basically talking about a person who is moving from an adolescent to an adult. Emerging to become an adult. We're not talking about a full adult. So we basically talk about ages 18 to 29. Yeah. So that's basically the age that we are talking about. Yeah.
The person who is emerging is between that age band. Thank you so much for that introduction. So, Margaret, what issues define the young adult? This age group, what are the psychological and we come to mental issues and social that define this young adult?
There's like going back to the term emerging. So you're not there, you're in transit. So we're talking about someone who is transitioning from adolescence and below 18 you're a child. So from being a child into becoming an adult. And that transition is marked by many things. One, then they're coming from high school and they're getting into institutions of higher learning. And that's just one of their many milestones that is characteristic. And then the older one in this phase are transitioning from college to employment.
Right.
Or getting into business. They're transitioning to starting families. Because we have people who start families at the age of 25, some even earlier.
Even younger.
They are transitioning from being 100% dependent on their parent to some of them gaining some level of independence. Some are moving from home and, living by themselves. But also, there is the other transition, which is you're coming from sort of a controlled environment where the parents were hawk-eyed. There was structure in support to a very unstructured support environment. You had people to talk to you. You went to visit your auntie and they would, they were also hawk-eyed and they would sit you down when you're in high school and there's a lot to tell you. But now that you've just landed in campus, then that hawk-eye vanishes. It's not there. So they're also coming from, I had people who were holding my hand to an environment and a field where I'm also expected to be independent and on my own. Yes.
So there's also an expectation, right?
There's a very high expectation, very high on expectation.
That you cope.
Yes.
That you cope and handle your issues well, isn't it? Yeah?
And the general way of you're an adult. And that this definition of an adult is what also confuses them a lot because an adult is like my mom. and I'm a 20-year-old, and I'm expected to make decisions like my mother, and I am not my mother, and I'm not my mother's age. Yes.
Charity, do you have a question or a comment before I ask a question?
Yes, I do. You mentioned, okay, what I know from the earlier discussion is that when you're 25, you have not really matured. The brain has not matured, and what is the, like she was asking, what is the difference between 18 to 25 and 25 over with the brain and psychologically? What happens within the brain for you to actually say at 25 now your brain is completely intact?
Do you want to take that from a doctor point?
Yes. Actually, Charity, I hear your question. Your question is like, how is this brain development? Yeah, I think that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Because we are talking about full cognitive development at age 25. Yeah. Before then, you are not fully cognitively developed. Yeah, the brain is not fully cognitively developed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a transition and there is a stepwise development of all aspects of our body, including the brain. Yeah, the fact that you go to school and you score your A does not mean that you are fully cognitively developed. Yeah. So when we talk about cognition, there's a part of the brain that actually does deal with the aspect of cognition. And when we talk about cognition, what are we talking about? We're talking about things like logical thinking, being able to reason, logical reasoning, are you able to control yourself? Yeah, like making decisions. Yeah, are you able to make decisions at knowing that this person, whatever has happened is not the right thing, but then how should I as a person navigate this situation? Yeah, so that aspect of the brain that controls that, which we call the prefrontal cortex, yeah, the part just before the frontal cortex. Yeah, we have the frontal cortex, we have the one on the side called parietal, and the one at the back we call occipital. So there's this bit just before, pre that front, yeah. And it's here in the brain structure. If you are able to draw it, the bit that normally scoops when you see a brain is normally the first bit that comes. Then, yeah. So that bit, yeah. So that's the prefrontal cortex. So that is the one that is fully developed by age 25, and it's the one that controls reasoning and controlling activities, so that you are not able to. You don't behave impulsively. That when this happens, okay, you drop, you bang the door, you go, yeah. You know the way your boss can annoy you, and you really feel like I should hit him. But this one will say, you
Control
can't
yourself.
punch.
Yeah.
So it is the one that actually tells you you can't punch. Yeah. So thank you. That is the bit. Now, for people below 25, that is where they are. Above 25, at least they now have that ability to control their actions, and they're able to make decisions, and they're able to reason, and whatever, all these activities are not seen, they're only seen in behavior. Yeah. The psych tells you what to do, controls everything that you do, but people will observe it in behavior.
Yes.
So they'll say Reverend Maggie is very calm. Yeah.
But some thinking has
But
been happening.
a lot of things have happened in her prefrontal cortex.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
And
the
that is the one that they
prefrontal
don't
cortex.
see.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what they don't see.
Yes.
They'll only see
Yes.
the behavior. Oh, she's very calm. Even when
Yeah.
you tell her this, even when you've not done your work, she's just calm. The maturity of that prefrontal cortex is what is exhibited. Yes.
And that is
Thank
what
you.
is attained a little later. So we are talking about a person who is still expected to be independent because the control has ceased from the parents. Now the person is expected to live on their own, decide when to go to class, actually go to class, do their homework and stuff like that, if they are in college, or be a good employee, isn't it? Yeah. So at that particular point, here's my question: is it any wonder then that the irrationality you talked about, the instability, the struggle with redefining self, is it any wonder that that is an issue among this generation or that age band? From a behavior now point of view.
we have to go back to what Dr. has said. They are not there yet. But the fact that they are not there yet cognitively doesn't mean the other parts of the brain are not matured.
functioning.
And so, like the emotional part of it is fully mature by this time.
Right.
Okay, let's understand this. When you're talking about the frontal part,
The prefrontal.
yes, and you're talking about the emotions, yes, the prefrontal, your biology is good.
I remember that
You know, until you get into
My
this
apologies for
class,
interrupting
then
you.
you don't realize why you needed biology.
Actually, you don't even know its value. Yes, at that time.
Yes, until you sit now in this psychopathology class and you're like, I think I need to go and look for my Form 3 biology books. You know. So then you have the midbrain, and that's where the emotional part of the brain is. And we're saying that is developed. So meaning what? Because this person is not reasoning the way we expect them to reason, then there is another force, that there's another thing inside that is already has reached, attained full maturity. And so that, most often than not, is more likely to take precedence over this which is not fully developed.
Yes.
And now, when you talk about this age, so anything that touches at the heart level gets there faster. That's why the relationships matter to them, because the relationships speak to the heart. That is why, even when it comes to making decisions, then we are saying they are more likely to be impulsive than logic.
Yes.
And than being rational. And this is something I want every parent to understand. But however, we are also putting a disclaimer here. It does not mean that because we are saying you're an emerging adult, that you should not be responsible for your own actions. Because then, remember, you've already demonstrated that intellectually, we're not saying you don't have anything. You have a lot, and you have the capacity. So this does not disqualify you from just, being a bit casual about the way you do things and a bit reckless. We also say, even your brain at that age, you have the capacity to be responsible and to also make rational decisions. However, we understand that bit. And from a behavioral point, we will understand that. We will see that and try and understand. But that doesn't exonerate you from being responsible.
So what frustrates parents, from what I've gathered, is that this emerging adult has had a chance to observe good behavior by siblings or at home and among other friends, and they're disturbed because if you've been able to observe, haven't you absorbed something that you can use to guide you as you are emerging before you reach, emerging means that present continuous tense, you're still going somewhere you haven't reached. Is there not something that you learned in the family that can help you?
I don't want to entirely say that the emerging adult hasn't learned anything, because truthfully speaking, there's a bit of the environment, but there is also the individual. And I think I want to stay and stick with the individual bit, because you can grow up, Pastor Maggie, in a very, in a good functional system, family system, and you will still see one child who is deviant. And you can grow in a very dysfunctional environment, but you see a child who has it all together. They're straight, they're focused, and they're hitting the milestones that they need to hit. And another one is not hitting. Is that entirely a reflection of the environment? Not necessarily, because there is the individual bit of it. And I think this is what we need to communicate, that the environment has a part, but you have a greater part as a person. Because if you're talking about, for example, someone getting into substance use, yes, they could be selling marijuana in my neighborhood, but that doesn't mean I'm going to abuse marijuana. Because as an individual, even as an emerging adult, I still have the capacity to say no. It doesn't mean it's zero capacity. It is there.
It is there.
It's just that maybe your risk assessment may be a bit impaired, but that doesn't mean it's completely absent. Yes.
Well put.
Yeah, I like what you have said, and I'm thinking adults at that age make a lot of excuses, and I just like the way you have said that it is an individual, so you're the one who makes the decision, and once you make that decision, then you will take responsibility of the consequences, and not to use your background or where you grew up or how well off your family is. Ultimately, you will have your own family. So will you not then thrive because I had a funny, an environment where it was very hard for you to grow up. So I really like that. Wow, thank you.
Yes, in a different conversation, Daktari, we talked very firmly about the need for the individual to take responsibility. I think let's speak to the young adult, this emerging adult, and help them see their need to take that individual responsibility in agreement with what Margaret has said.
Yeah. When you talk about the person taking responsibility, that's where my heart lies. Because if we were all to think about where we came from, then nothing would have ever happened in Africa. Forget about our small families. Nothing would have happened in Africa. And we are seeing a lot of things in Africa today. Yeah. So to me, what I know is that there are different components of what determines what you do. One of them is, of course, your inheritance. Yeah, what you pick.
Yes.
But a lot of things that you pick from your family lineage, in whatever you want to call it, your DNA or your makeup, is modulated by the environment. And by the time you're an emerging adult, you have gone through several hands. And guidance begins in kindergarten. For those who go to kindergarten, some of us never had kindergarten during our time. Yeah. So
We're homeschooled.
hey, those ones were not there. Was there any homeschool?
Yes,
As children, we
the
used to
school of
play.
home.
Yeah, as we used to play. We used to play, and then there were a bit of sticks here and there. Yeah, you only know when you make a mistake when you are beaten. But otherwise, everything else, when you are not beaten, that is good behavior. That is how it was defined. So that was not a big problem for
That's
us.
a good one.
Today, we have to define, this is bad, this is right. For us, we knew.
You inferred.
If you have a cane, that was bad behavior,
Yeah.
and you don't do it again. Yeah. So we are saying that there have been some guidance from that kindergarten to this age of 18. Whether you left school in standard 8, whether you are leaving it after Form 4, because of course there are people who didn't have the benefit of these extended, not just extended, free, compulsory, 100 transition.
Indeed. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people
Yeah.
didn't have it. So, but in a few years, we'll be talking about everybody having gone to high school.
Yes.
So whether you left it in standard 8, in Form 4, or at the university, whether you finished, dropped out, whether you finished and got a job or didn't get a job, there have been people who, and that
Yes,
is the
along
environment we
your
are talking about.
journey,
So we
yeah.
are not,
Yeah.
you can't insist on your family environment. There's all this is environment that has been trying to guide you, that have spoken to you as a person and in terms of behavior, what is expected of you. Yeah? Yes. And what is expected of you is in the context of the societal norms. Yeah. So we cannot, and I keep on telling my young people that, no, we can't stay there. If we were to stay there, we'd still be in colonialism. Oh, because we are colonized, but we have seen a lot of movement. So apart from those two things that modulate you, that modulate and moderate your behavior, you have a responsibility. It is you to decide, because there's no day that this environment will be speaking to you directly. It is you to find your way in that environment. And is the reason why every shopping center and every neighborhood, drugs are there. Risky behaviors are there. And you'll find them in the people. But if you understand who you are, and this is what I keep on insisting, just know who you are. Yeah. And this is what we are trying to do here, to help the young, the emerging adult understand who he or she is. When I talk about your brain not fully developed by age 25, I am informing you that some of the decisions you are making may be irrational. And therefore, what are we saying? When there's another voice, another voice of reason trying to talk to you, sit back. Just remember, Midweek Vibes said that before 25, I am not fully developed in terms of reasoning and control. Could this be one of those situations? Yeah? That is what we are saying. Yeah. That's why I'm saying it is you, the individual. What we are giving you is empowering you. Yeah. To know what is happening, to understand yourself. If you talk to a lot of people, you'll definitely know that for me, okay, when this happens, I'm too impulsive. I don't, or I speak too fast. I speak too much. People will tell you. Sit with that and say, how does this affect my life? How does this affect me moving to that adult that I want to be? So to me, that is where the individualism comes in. It is not, there's a bit of how you grew up, but I'm still insisting there have been a lot of things that have happened outside that family. Yeah, because sometimes people say, oh, no, my parents never gave me this, we didn't get this, our school, we didn't have hot water. People have talked about it. Yes. So that to me is the individual choice that you have to make.
I heard of this quote that anyone above a certain age is responsible for their face. So
How they look or how they were created.
even the attitude, their willingness to either learn or not learn, they're actually responsible. And that's what Daktari has captured very well. I think it is time for us to take a short break. And when we come back, we now look deeply into the issue of depression among the emerging adults. And the question we want to ask, why? So don't go away. Stay put. We shall come back in the next few minutes. Guys, it's so nice to have you staying put, and we want to pick it up from where we stopped, Daktari. There are myths about psychiatry. And you being a psychiatrist, I think you're best placed to help us debunk some of those myths. And one of the myths, and I invite you to let us know the myths that you know about or you talk about, you've heard about psychiatry. But one of the myths about psychiatry is that if you see a psychiatrist, you go bonkers.
Reverend Maggie, what is bonkers?
Let me add to what she has said. No, in our language, they say, you have thrown wood.
You have thrown the wood, you have lost the wood.
You have lost the wood.
Yeah.
You have gone case.
You have gone cuckoo.
Tupambao.
Hey. That one.
Yeah. To us, those are not part of our language. But we are aware that they are being used ordinarily. Yeah, it's in the, it's important to understand language. Communication starts from language. So if you don't understand what people mean, then you will lose it. A psychiatrist, who I'm one of them, you can look at me. This is how they look like. Yeah. I don't think we are different from the word go. All along we've been here, and I don't see anything that has been different between me and you. Yeah, unless maybe Reverend, Reverend reads the Bible more, but that's okay. As a psychiatrist, what we do is that we deal with diseases or illnesses or conditions of the brain. Yes. The brain is part of the body. Yeah, I think you remember I was talking about a prefrontal cortex.
Yes.
At that time, you were all okay. Yeah. Now, that part, where the other components I told you, that is what we deal with. Diseases, illnesses, conditions of that part. Yeah. There are some components that we'll send to other disciplines of medicine, like a neurologist. There are those when they have to operate on you, that part of the brain, of the body, you have a neurosurgeon. Yeah. So that is where our work is. As a psychiatrist, it is illnesses, it is disorders. Yeah. I talk about diseases of that. I don't deal with when there's no problem, then we say you don't see a psychiatrist. Yeah. You can see a psychologist because you would be having other issues. Yeah. But the psychologist will tell us the other things that they are done. We have Margaret here.
Yeah.
She will tell us about the other things. So that part of the brain, which is part of that body,
Yes.
is the one that we treat. Yes. So when you have a problem, we treat that. But I don't know why people like talking about kuchizi, whatever, but I think I appreciate where they're coming from. This is the engine of this
Or this body.
Yeah. Just like the car. If the engine is not working, what do you say? Imefanya nini? Imenok. So I'm imagining that they must have gotten this language from that. Yeah. But now we are saying where I'm seated as a psychiatrist. If I am suffering from a mental illness and you use that terminology on me, I would actually feel bad because it's like you are associating me, just like I'm another object. I'm a car that is now not functioning. It's like you have removed the humane aspect from me.
Exactly.
Yes, so that is the reason why I say that the language doesn't suit well. But again, to be able to understand and communicate with your people, you need to understand their language. Yeah. Yeah.
But behind that myth about those terms that are used, I believe there's a bit of fear. Because society doesn't know how to deal with things they don't understand.
Yes, Reverend Margaret, it's very difficult. Reverend Margaret, it's very difficult understanding the brain. The brain is complex. Maybe let me put it easily. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor. So what did I have to do? I had to do everything, and then I did an undergraduate degree in medicine, what we call medicine, Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery. Then after that, my time we did 3 years of only studying that brain. 3 years.
Of the brain only.
Yes. And if I want to complicate it, we were not discussing one disease. That brain and what we deal with as psychiatrists are over 300 diseases. So anyway, let's not make it very, very, very difficult for you.
I think it's quite frightening if the brain can have over 300 problems, isn't it?
There are several conditions that we deal with. And these are things that happen. They are there just the way we have diabetes, we have hypertension, we have disease of the heart, you go and see the cardiologist. They don't give you the same diagnosis. There are different conditions of the heart, and they'll tell you there are many. There are also different conditions of the chest, the limbs, the kidney, and that is nephrology. I think everybody today knows about nephrology.
Those difficult terms.
And even the cancers.
Yes.
There are so many cancers. So now you talk about oncologists. So it is in the same context. And I think, please, don't fear us. I think we've been seated here and we are sitting here.
I think we've heard it. I think we can speak to our people and say we've heard it, that they're not bad guys.
Yes.
I think is people are not the ones who are feared. What is feared is the condition they treat. Because the condition they treat is the one that society either finds it easy to accept or work with, or they hit a blank when it comes to appreciating how to work with a person who has a mental challenge or disease. Isn't it? Yeah?
Yeah, actually what you have said, the condition, you can imagine. How do you come to understand, like why somebody would have some of the symptoms that they do experience when they have mental illnesses, when they have depression. They don't have pain anywhere,
Yeah.
but they can't do anything. They are eating. You don't see them like having a loss of, not having energy, but they just feel they just find themselves that they can't do that. And I think that's some of the things that we need to discuss
Yeah, and
and
pay
see what
attention to.
exactly happens to these emerging adults.
Exactly.
Given what we have just been talking about, all those many things, those transitions that happen in them. Could they bring them to some of these situations so that they're able to now understand if they ever experience those and what they need to do? I think, Reverend Margaret, it would be important for us that we don't just leave this at the emerging adult, but what are some of those things that could happen to them? Right?
Actually, let's actually go right there straight away and we explore what are the mental conditions or illnesses or challenges that our young emerging adults are facing in this day and age.
Picking up from where Daktari has up to that point, when you're talking about the mental illnesses, there's also something else that's very important for us to understand. Something they refer to as the age of onset. It's important to understand there's some mental illnesses that will not, they are not seen. Or they are not common. Maybe the term is they are not common with certain ages. You know, like when you're talking about dementia, it's unlikely to see an adolescent who has dementia unless, of course, they have a traumatic brain injury or something that happened to them. So certain mental illnesses are characteristic with certain ages. And I think there is a biological explanation to that, some of those things. If you're talking about, like, for example, postpartum depression, it's only characteristic to a mother who has given birth or who was pregnant. Let's even pick it from there because, you can have a miscarriage, and all. But it's characteristic for that only. So even as we are looking at depression now and we are talking about the emerging adult, first, it's to qualify that the age we are talking about, depression sits and fits in that age group. That's one of the things. So when you're talking about this adolescent, this emerging adult, let's also understand one thing when we are talking about depression, and I think Daktari is better placed to talk about this. There are certain triggers. In mental health, we don't talk about causes. It's not the correct term. It's a trigger that pushed you to developing that condition or that illness. Coming from before the break, we're talking about all the social issues that this individual is going through. And, just that aspect of trying to fit in and transitioning. And anyone understands that when there is a change, whether it's a developmental change or whether it's a social change, it comes with some impact. It doesn't leave you unscathed. It will always, there's always some challenge or difficult transitioning. So they are at the age right now and at the time right now, there's so much going on. From the social media to posting where you've been, your family, what you've eaten, how you're dressed, and all that. So what happens to me, Margaret, who comes from a very humble background, and I'm struggling to compete with these ones. Never mind, some will be lying. And that is enough to push this person that we said does not have the critical capacity to just appreciate that, wait a minute, I don't have to be like them. This is me, and I am okay. And I'm privileged in my own right. Because where I am today, there's someone who is a step behind me. They don't have that capacity to stop for a minute and think like that, and think I can hang around Pastor Maggie, and she's, she's a privileged child, but I'm not a privileged child because I don't come from a privileged background. But we can be friends, we can be schoolmates, and I don't have to do everything Pastor Maggie says. So that social transition.
At that time, she's not Pastor Maggie.
Yes.
She's just Maggie.
She's just
and
Maggie.
emerging also.
She's Maggie, yes. So the fact that this person is going through that phase in life, and they can't separate themselves from what is happening, that's just one of the social triggers. At 30, you can handle a relationship breakup because you can separate yourself from that relationship and you can say, this is what I did and this is what my partner did. But these emerging adults, some of them, they'll be like, it's rejection. If it didn't work, it is rejection. Then again, why? Remember that cognitive development.
Yes.
So there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of expectation from the society, from the social setting. And remember, they also have their own goals. And there's something I also want us to understand about these people. They have this magical thinking, which, again, it's outrageous, for lack of another word to describe it. When you listen to 22-year-old argue with you, they think they hold the key to this world and you know how they can just make the changes. But it's okay, they have that magical thinking. So when this magic does not work, what does it mean? It's me.
Yes, but the problem.
It's just that that thing didn't work. It is not because it was not practical. It is me. So they take it again upon themselves. And a lot of, you know, other issues, the inability to say no to substances and to peer influence, because then if the others are doing it, so I want to belong. Their identity is still being developed. They're transitioning from adolescence, and all those things really come and hit them, and they don't even understand what they're dealing with.
Those are a couple of triggers you have mentioned. So we are looking at the triggers for their depression at this time. Is there something else, Dr. you would like to add?
Yes, there are biological triggers. Yeah. And when we talk about biological triggers, we are talking about your genetic makeup. Yeah, there's some inheritance that is there for depression. So that if there is, if you had a family member, which is now your parent, with depression, you have a higher chance of developing depression. But then again, I like to inform you that there's what we call the environment. They are modulators, yeah, and they're also those things that make you, Reverend Maggie, those things that make you Charity, those things that make me Francisca. They are unique. Even as we are seated here, if you asked any viewer, they would have specific things for each of us. Yeah, so that thing that makes you unique is that your personality,
Right.
that people can be able to pick from afar in terms of your connectivity and relationships. So that genetic makeup is one. Then two, and it's so that if your parent is depressed, you're going to be depressed. Yeah, this is not like those things that if you have this, the next person must have. Yeah, it's not a direct transmission. Yeah, it's not that thing that will go directly that because I'm like this, you will be this. Yeah, so that again needs to help us understand that people should not be worried. These emerging adults should not be worried that because my mother or my grandfather was sick, I must be sick. Yeah.
And I think we have seen families where if one person, a parent was sick, the children are not. We've seen that.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that. Yeah. Then there's the second aspect that you could be having some derangement. And remember, we were talking about the brain, and we talked about the cortex. But in the cortex, just the way we have the people work in telecommunication. I don't know whether you've, for those who are in Nairobi, the GPO, that time they had put this telecommunication thing. When you go to look at that line, those lines, yeah, just at the entrance. Or anybody who appreciates wiring, yeah, when you have a situation that even Kenya Power, some wires, you look at them and this connects to this and this will light that line, this will light the other line. Is the way the brain also works. We have wiring in the brain. So in that wiring, there are those things that we call receptors and there are those chemicals that control or manage or transmit in these wires. So if there's going to be a problem in that aspect, then we are going to have some mental illnesses, of which depression is one of them that is caused by that. Because there are also these other, schizophrenia and the others, but we just want to stick with depression, depending on the kind of brain chemical that is affected.
Right.
Yeah, and that is where we base our treatment. Yeah, because if that amount, if it is less, we give you something to make it, to increase it, and therefore make you be normal, what is now the one who is not sick. If it is high, we give something that reduces it to bring it to the normal level. So we work on that. And these chemicals are important in that they are the ones that help in whatever systems that we see. Remember, I told you what you see is behavior.
Yes.
But the control is up
In the
there,
cortex.
inside there, the cortex and
Yes.
the other aspects. I like that, Reverend Maggie. I like that.
I can encourage everyone to do the psychiatry and study under you. It's really
Then there is the
amazing.
third aspect. There are physical illnesses. There are those conditions that people suffer and they get prone to develop depression. We've seen an association, an association between some particular medical conditions. Let's call them medical. No, as in psychiatry, we like calling them physical, because people like things that they can see. And they can tell the doctor, I can feel pain here. There's a swelling here. I am feeling like I want to vomit, which is difficult when it comes to mental illnesses. Yeah, so we could like referring to them as physical illnesses, but they're the medical conditions. So if you have, there's some conditions like diabetes that have been associated with depression. Some thyroid conditions, you can be depressed, or you can also be having the mania, the bipolar one illness, which we are not part of the discussion today. Yeah, so those are some of the biological conditions, what biological situations that would make you develop depression in this age. She talked about the age. 50% of people who develop depression, actually the onset is at this period. So the correctness of the age is very significant. Yes, 50% people can develop depression at whatever age, from childhood to old age. But 50% of the onset occurs at this period.
Wow, that's a big
What again is
percentage.
significant about depression and this age? It is the fourth leading cause of disease among the 15 to 24-year-olds globally.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. The fourth. Yes. Yeah.
Wow, it ranks very high.
Yeah.
Top
So
four.
we cannot sit and say that what is that? We don't need to treat that. You know?
We do
We
need
really
to.
need to be able to appreciate and understand what is depression, and therefore remember that this is number 4 of all the diseases that these people get. So it tells us that it's a significant thing that we really need to think about.
very, yeah.
We can't keep on saying, I'm just depressed, it's just stressed, it's because of just a lack of job. Depression is a disease, and we will talk about it, I think.
Wow, now our time is gone completely. I've actually been alerted that our time is gone. Yes, so I think we allow we allow ourselves to take a pause a little here and close this show. But before we close it, Daktari, we will need to come back and talk about the management. We didn't talk about management at all. Time ran out for us. And management, Margaret, is very good in helping us deal with the psychosocial issues, as you tell us how to deal with, from a medical point of view, with these issues, isn't it? Yeah?
Yes.
I think, allow me to appreciate our time and your contributions and your insights. Then we close it and seek for another opportunity to pick up from where we stopped. And I want to say this, even as we close that, Daktari, what you said is very significant. And I think I would like you to give us a closing shot, closing remark at this time, and help us appreciate the importance of addressing this situation. You say that it's ranks fourth, depression ranks fourth among the problems that our emerging adults face. And then you have said that 50% of the entire emerging adult population the world over is prone. What did you say?
50%
let me
of
correct.
the depression case
50% of depression
Cases.
caseload, not cases, caseload,
Wow.
are in this age group. So the other 50% is what is distributed to the other people, 0 to
Yes.
17,
Yes.
and then 30 to 120.
Thank you so much for that correction, because it is even paints a great picture now that 50% is like half of this. That's a stage where everybody passes through, and that's why it's so important. So please, Dr. give us a closing remark.
A closing remark for now is that it's important that we realize that the emerging adult is a transition period with a lot of issues. And if one happens to be diagnosed with depression and you are referred or asked to see a psychiatrist, please remember the words we had talked about. It is problem with the brain, part of your body, so it is not unique. And two, that the people who are treating you are like the other doctors that you see, and they are also treating you from an evidence-based situation, that there's a biological reason why we are treating you. So that would be my parting shot. And please feel free. The myths are there, the language is there, but it is us who will change that language. And as long as we have the understanding, we will also be able to help ourselves. Thank you very much.
Asante sana Daktari, and thank you so much for your time. Charity, give us a quick one also. Encourage the young people to pop up and seek help, the help they need.
Yes, I like that. We are planning to have a helpline in case you are going through any depression and you don't have a place to talk. We are open and we will make sure that we'll communicate that helpline to you so that you can reach out to us. Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Mamlaka Youth Chapel is always ready to take care of us whenever we can. So let us know what you're going through, and our professionals are here to help us. That's very nice. Margaret, please give us a closing remark.
Thank you very much. I would like to just speak to our audience and tell them depression is manageable. So let's also, I know we're talking about it as very serious, but it is also manageable, and with the right management, people spring back, they bounce back, and they live normal lives. But that happens if you seek early intervention. So we need you back, you can manage, you can come back. Yes, and you can live your normal life. Yes.
Thank you so much. That's a message of hope. I really like it from both angles, that we have a problem, but we also have a solution. And we don't have to die with our problems. So thank you so much. I can't really thank you enough for taking your time to come and sharing so insightfully with all of us. And Dr. let me just say this again. If I was to start all over again, I would do psychiatry and I would be taught. You'll be my teacher. And I think I would score very well. You're amazing. Thank you so much. And I appreciate that very much. Margaret, I would like to sit at your feet as well. You guys are amazing, and we appreciate you. We thank you, and our audience, thank you so much for staying tuned. Thank you for your time. We look forward to seeing you again, and we'll let you know as soon as we put our poster ready when you can come back. Daktari is ready and willing to work with us, and so is Margaret, and we really appreciate you. Thank you very much. Enjoy your afternoon.